Okay, I think we're all set. Good morning, everyone. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today, October 19th. Happy fall, everyone. Can't believe it's already late October, of course. It's a beautiful day here in Denver, Colorado, and we're going to dive into our PSTrax Vehicle Module today and NFP 1911 checklists and Department of Transportation inspections. My name's Robbie with PSTrax on behalf of the marketing team. Thank you for being here. I'm joined today with Ryan, my colleague. He'll be your presenter today. Ryan's our Chief Operations Officer, excuse me, at PSTrax, and will be your speaker and leading you through today's webinar. I'll pass it over to Ryan here in just a minute, and we're going to start with some polls as we usually do in our live webinars. This helps us gather a little bit of information from all of you and kind of tailor a little bit of some, maybe your needs or things you want to see today into the presentation. After the polls, Ryan will walk through a brief history of NFPA 1911 checklists, as well as a company overview. So if you're new to PSTrax, you can learn a little bit more about us, and thanks for being here. Then after that, Ryan will jump into the demo site, which will be a healthy chunk of today's webinar. During that time, Brian will take you through kind of like a day in the life of a crew member doing their checkoffs on their rigs and inspections. And then we'll also look at the administrative view and managing all of your rigs and checklists on the back end there. So again, my name's Robbie. I'll be doing live Q&A throughout this as well. Please use the chat function at the bottom or the Q&A function, and I'll be taking questions and kindly interrupt Ryan here as we go. So also one last thing, we are live on Facebook too. If that happens to be a better platform, if you want to invite anybody, you're welcome to check out our PSTrax page. It's facebook.com/PSTrax. So Ryan, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today. We're going to kind of dive into a very important topic, one of the most crucial ones in the first responder industry, which is your vehicles, which obviously go with you everywhere you go. So today we're going to talk about, how do you maintain them, keep them in working order, specifically as it relates to NFPA 1911 and also any DOT vehicle inspections or other inspections you might be doing on your vehicles. So before we hop into it, as Robbie mentioned, we do have a few polls. So Robbie, if you want to launch those, I'll hand it back over to you real quick.
Yeah, I should see the intro poll come up on your screen here. We launched for a little time savings. We have 4 questions. We just launch them all at once, if you don't mind. We'd love to have your participation today. Couple questions just about you and your agency and how you're documenting your checks today. A little bit more about the value of all of your vehicles. And then the final question is something a little bit more pertinent to today. If there's anything that we can help look at how our system may streamline some potential pain points for you associated with rig checks and checklists. So I'll let this run here. Thank you very much. Lots of responses coming in. We'll let this go for another 10 seconds. Great, thanks so much, everyone. And we're going to end in 3, 2, 1. And I should be able to share this so you can see. Ryan, you got that?
I do, yeah, thanks, Robbie. Yep, so yeah, this is great. Thanks again, everyone, for taking the time to do that. Looks like a good mix today of different types of departments. So 25% are paid, and then 38% combination, and the remaining 38% are volunteer. In terms of how folks are doing their vehicle checks today, 13% are on paper or spreadsheets, 50% are currently using PSTrax, and then 38% are using other systems. What is the approximate value of your vehicles? 63% 0 to 5 million, 25% 5 to 15 million, and 13% 15 million or more. And then in terms of pain points or challenges right now, it looks like kind of documenting inspections and repairs at 75%. That's a big one for most folks. Next up, tracking inventory as it moves from rig to rig. So kind of those transfers, inventory transfers. So I'll touch on these different areas. This is great to kind of know what's important to y'all. 50% consistency of communication between shifts, and then 63% crew accountability for doing the right checks at the right time. Kind of towards the bottom, accessibility of documentation and reports, that was 38%, and losing equipment was 13%. So good, yeah, let me, I'm just gonna actually jot some of those down real quick so I touch on them when we go into the demo. But yeah, thanks again for doing that. And we'll go ahead and close the polls. There we go, thanks Robbie. And before we talk about PSTrax or kind of how we help with some of those pain points, I wanted to quickly go through NFPA 1911. And I'm sure if any of you are in charge of your vehicles, you're probably familiar with this section of the NFPA guidelines already. There's quite a few pages that go into it. It is free online. If you don't have a copy yourself, you can go online to NFPA's website and access it for free. Of course, if you want a downloaded version or a hard copy version, they do charge you for that. But if you want to just read through it online, you can do that anytime. And really, NFPA 11, the whole purpose of that section or that chapter is about your vehicles and how do you keep them in service, right? So doing the right inspections, excuse me, doing the right inspections, maintaining them, testing them, and then ultimately, when they get to end of life, how do you retire the vehicles and replace them with newer ones? So I just pulled out a few of the highlights from the section. There's obviously a lot of different pieces that go into it, but there's 117 pages. So if you want to, have some fun reading at night, you can read through that sometime. But some of the highlights we'll touch on today. They do recommend that you be doing a daily or weekly visual and operational check. And so basically, anytime the vehicle is run, they suggest that an inspection be done within 24 hours of that call, or at least weekly. So if you don't run any calls for a week, you should be checking it at least that frequently. They do recommend also that you use a check sheet to document that. So I won't mention any names, but I have been to some departments where they will just kind of walk around the truck and in their heads, they'll go check, 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 but not physically document anything, even on paper. And so NFPA, it is strongly recommended that you, at a minimum, be checking that off. So you have some form of documentation, right, that check was being done. There's the old saying that if it wasn't documented, it never happened. And especially if you get into a situation where you have to provide that documentation, whether it's an audit or if there's an accident, and you have to show that you actually were performing those checks, it's really important to make sure you have the records of when things were done and what was completed. Obviously, if there's any deficiencies, you want to be able to not only document those, but report them to the right people, pull the unit out of service, make sure it gets maintained or repaired, and then hopefully get it back in service as quickly as possible. And that whole record, all those checks, all the the maintenance history, the issues or the deficiencies that come up, that's all part of the record. So NFPA suggests, again, having all that either in paper form or digital format. In terms of the inspections themselves, there's different categories or areas that they recommend the vehicle inspections be completed. I won't go through all the lists there at the bottom, but everything from engine to chassis to your inventories to if there's an aerial, obviously the pumps, all the different components that go into the vehicles. It's important to make sure those are each being checked frequently, and making sure that's being documented. These are just a couple of the examples straight from the NFPA 1911 section. These are check sheet examples. So this would be a daily, weekly walk around check, pretty high level, but going around the vehicle, just checking that, you know, things are okay. On a quarterly or annual basis, NFPA recommends doing more of a PM check. So this will be more in depth and more detailed of specifically, you know, all the little things that you mechanically want to check on the vehicle. And then they also have checklists for more specific items like your aerial devices, and even your pump performance tests. So these are all available in the 1911 section. So if you aren't doing any checklists today and you're maybe looking for a place to start or to kind of improve upon, these would be some good resources that you could leverage as kind of a starting point. Now, some challenges that a lot of departments have, and actually some of these were pain points that we touched on a little bit earlier, is number one, just, you know, documentation. There's a lot of different types of checklists. We kind of just touched on NFPA 1911 really quick, but a lot of states have DOT checklists as well that they're responsible for completing. And on top of that, a lot of agencies will have agency-specific checklists that they complete as well. And that might be like a vehicle inventory checklist, where you actually go into each compartment and have the crews, you know, check off all the items inside of each compartment. And then obviously PM schedules too. And those PM schedules vary a little bit from department to department. So there's a lot of kind of a lot of nuances and a lot of different flavors across the country. And what we've kind of found as a company is that every agency does these things differently, right? No two departments are the same. Everyone has different checklists. And because NFPA is not a hard, you know, hard guideline in terms of like a compliance guideline, it's more of a standard or a recommendation. Everyone interprets those recommendations a little bit differently and implements them differently in their department. So there is a lot of uniqueness. On top of that, as we all know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but just within this industry, there's more complexity in terms of different types of apparatus. There's obviously a lot of equipment being carried on each one. That equipment can vary from vehicle to vehicle. There's different check schedules, different crew locations, and different shifts, and everyone's sharing these items, right? So there's a lot of, on top of just the vehicles themselves, there's a lot of just logistical complexity that goes into this. And we'll kind of dive in later about PSTrax and how we help, but over here on the right-hand side, really what we do is we help automate these checks. So when the crews come in, if it's engine one, for example, they can just see exactly what's due for the day. When they click into that checklist, it'll show them all the individual tasks that they need to complete, and they can just go right down that checklist, complete those, and report on any deficiencies that need to be reported on. So again, I'll dive into that more and show some examples of that, but that's kind of from a high level how we help automate those different checklists for you. And because of all that complexity, if you weren't aware, about 80% of departments actually still use paper and spreadsheets to track vehicle inspections today. So across the country, it's still pretty common to see folks that are doing it that way. So if you're in that spot today, definitely don't feel alone by any means. It is a culture change too, right? As you move from paper, anything, paper check sheets or whatever it might be, to something more digital. All right, and kind of switching gears a little bit, if you're new to PSTrax, this is kind of what our system looks like. It is an all-in-one system, so you can do all your different checks from one platform. What's unique about us is we actually custom configure it for each agency we work with. So again, we recognize every agency is different. And so if we're lucky enough to work with you, we have you just send us all of your check sheets and all of your, whether it's paper or Excel sheets, you just email those to us, and then our team will actually build a customized solution for your department. And I think you'll see in the demo, but we built the system to be very user-friendly because it's important to get a high adoption rate with the crews. So, from a firefighter's perspective or a medic's perspective, when they log in, it's very easy. This is kind of what it looks like on a phone, but it's very easy to navigate. You can see clearly, what's due, and click right in and just complete those checks. All the checks and all the data that gets completed is all electronic. What's nice about that is anytime you need to download or export that information, you can really quickly go in, hit within 2 clicks of the mouse, you can download that report and then share it with whoever you need to. You can also track issues in the system. So when the crew members are doing their checks on the vehicles, if they see a discrepancy or a problem, they can set an alert. And what that alert will do is send off automatically to the appropriate people based on the type of issue. So if it's a flat tire, that's probably going to go to our fleet maintenance folks. If we're, if we have a headlight out, that might go to the mechanics as well. So you can kind of determine the recipients of those alerts based on the categories and the type of issues. It is a cloud-based system, so you can use any device that you'd like. Today, I'll show you, I'll do most of the demo on my computer just because it's a bigger screen, but I'm also going to show you what it looks like on a phone. So you can use any device that you'd like I mentioned, phones, tablets, toughbooks, computers. We call it a responsive design system. So what that means is regardless of the size of screen, it'll scale and look really nice and user-friendly regardless. We do support barcodes and QR codes. So if that's a requirement of yours, you can certainly use that. And then finally, you always own your data. So we host it for you and keep it secure, but you have full rights and full access to that. Okay, so today, obviously, we're going to kind of focus on the vehicle module. We actually have 7 different modules that are part of the system. And so if vehicles is kind of your low-hanging fruit, you can certainly just start with that one. But if you ever want to add other modules down the road, just know that that's available to you as well. So our vehicle module, we actually have the NFPA 1911 recommendations as a starting point. So if you don't have anything right now, again, don't worry about it. We have some templates and some baseline checks that we have already built that we can use as a starting point. But if you already have checklists that you're using currently, then you can just send those over to us, like I mentioned, and we'll build them exactly how you'd like. Everything that rolls on the vehicle is included, so we actually can break out each compartment and list out the items inside. And so, as you can imagine, every vehicle is different, right? We customize it for each vehicle based on what it's carrying and what checks you'd like to be completed on it. You can have unlimited check scheduling options as well. So a lot of departments will have kind of a basic morning check that the crews do every day, but then maybe a more thorough weekly check or a full monthly inventory. They might have a pump test every 4 months, a ladder test every 6 months. I'm kind of just making up these different scenarios, but whatever frequencies you guys would like, that's how we schedule them. So it really is customized based on what you would like. And in terms of how we price the vehicle module, I'll touch on this at the end, but basically we count up how many heavy vehicles you have, which are the big guys like the engines, the aerials, ambulances that have a lot of inventories on them. And then how many support vehicles, which is the lighter vehicles like BC units, tender, tanker, utility vehicles, things like that. And if you are new to PSTrax, again, something that's unique about us compared to other solutions in the marketplace is we actually build the whole system for you. And as I mentioned a couple of times, you just have to send us your documents. And from there, our team will manage the whole project. We'll take your data and clean it up and import it into the system. Once we have it all built, we do the training for your administrators. and help you roll out the system to the crews. And then another big thing is, you all know, is there's no there's no I guess the one thing that's constant in the industry, right, is that things change. So nothing stays the same over time. Even once we get the system built, there's going to be constant changes. You might get new vehicles or new equipment. You might need to make changes to a check sheet, maybe add in new personnel when an academy graduates. So anytime those changes happen, we actually include unlimited support with the system. So you can call our team up and we actually will help you make those changes. At the same time, you don't have to rely on us. If you want to go in yourself and make those changes, you certainly can do that as well. And we work with about 550 agencies across the country. So this is kind of just a snapshot of the folks we work with. We also have some up in Canada and down in Australia as well. And we'll come back to the upcoming webinars a bit later, but I'll go ahead and transition over to the demo next and kind of show you what the system looks like for the vehicle module. Robbie, any questions so far? Check in with you real quick.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. At this time, I'll kind of give everybody an opportunity to jump in if you have any immediate questions from what Ryan's covered so far, and we'll let him set up the demo site here. And I'm sure there'll be many as we go through the demo site, so you're welcome to ask questions kind of live, and I'll find a good stopping point if we need to circle back and maybe simulate something, how you particular do, something you might follow your internal processes that you'd like to take a look at. So, I had a question here from Duncan. He was asking about the webinar dates for the last slide you just went through. We'll touch on that a little bit later, Duncan, but I can give you a little bit of info on that. November 2nd is when we do a PSTrax overview. That's kind of a high-level touch on all of our modules. And then November 16th is our next topical webinar, which, remind me again, Ryan, that was PPE, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, PPE module.
Back to it here.
Yep. 18, that's right. It's NFPA 1851, inspections, cleanings, and exposures. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, no worries.
Off the top of my head. And another question coming in here. Just give me 1 minute. Oh, you're welcome, Duncan. Another question coming in here from Edward. Thank you for the question, sir. Ryan, this is a question around the program being fully web-based or as an app support for smartphones and iPads, if maybe you could touch on that quickly.
Yeah, great question, Edward. So it is fully web-based, so you can use any device that you would like to use. And the reason we built that, or one of the reasons, is because you can actually have multiple crew members out doing checks at the same time. So especially on the vehicle checks, if you have like a big inventory day, you can actually have 3 or 4 people out around the truck, and each one could be using their own device to check off a compartment or different part of the vehicle. So that's kind of why we built it that way. We don't have an app right now that you would download, but you can use any device and just go to your browser and log in. What you can do, I'll show you this real quick, is you can actually, if you can see that, on your phone, you can have an icon there that when you click it, it'll just launch you out to to the website to log in. So it's not an app, but it kind of looks like an app on your device because you can still have that icon there for the crews to quickly hit, and then that'll bring them to the login page.
And I know as part of our training and rollout, we can actually show you how to upload that to and get that on all your crews' phones. So great. Edward says, wonderful. You're welcome, Edward. Thanks for the question. Another question coming in from Gerald. Thank you for the question, Gerald. This is around customizing checklists, Ryan. Is it possible to set checklists to show just the DOT requirements than perhaps, a separate checklist or something for non-DOT requirements.
Yeah, absolutely, Gerald. Yeah, we can break those out however you'd like them. So if you'd like a DOT requirements section, we can just build that with the specific checks that you want, and we can schedule it whatever frequency you want. So weekly or first Monday of every month, or whatever frequency you'd like, and then we can have a separate section, a separate checklist for the non-DOT requirements. So yeah, as many different checklists and as many different schedules as you want, we can just build those all in there for you. Yeah, great question. And I'll show you that, Gerald, as well in the demo here.
Great, thanks for the questions, everyone. Oh, sorry, Ryan, I'll let you continue.
Oh yeah, nope, just gonna see if there's anything else, Robbie.
That's all I have at this time, yeah. Thanks for the questions, everyone.
Great. Okay, well, yeah, let me go ahead and hop in here real quick. Again, to start, I'm just using my computer. Every crew member, though, will have their own username and login. So from an accountability perspective, when people are doing their checks, it'll actually document, which person completed each check as well. And when I log in, this is kind of the home page for the system. And you can see we're at station 1 right now. If you have more than one station or more than one location, or maybe you're filling in at a different station for the day, you can always change your view and go to a different home page. So if I want to go to another station, or we actually have some other locations set up like our maintenance shop and the headquarters, I'm just going to stay on station 1 for our demo this morning. But here on the homepage, there's kind of 3 sections. The schedule will essentially show you all the checks that are due right now. Today, we're just going to focus on the vehicle checks, which will be here in the blue. Also on the homepage is any open alerts. So when there are issues or discrepancies, we can set an alert that'll be sent off to the right people, but it also will stay here on the homepage. So in terms of communication amongst the shifts and kind of passing on information, what's really nice is anyone that logs into station 1 is going to see the most recent alerts right here. And you can also add comments or updates. So as things are getting replaced or new information is available, those comments and updates can be added so the crews back at the station know what's going on with that issue. And again, I'll show you an example of this as we kind of go through the vehicle checks. But the final section on the right is the journal. And this is basically a digital whiteboard. So any communications that you'd like to post up here, it could be like a pass-on report or training. What else? I've seen it for station tours, things like that. Actually, I'll just pop in here real quick. These are some of the more general categories we typically see. But you can really post anything here. And again, the crews will just see that when they log in. So that's kind of the homepage from a computer perspective. What I wanted to do real quick is actually show you what this looks like on a phone or a mobile device. So let me see if I can share this. There we go. Okay, so I'm actually using my phone here. That's me and my daughter at the beach this summer. But in terms of the application, you can see here, you can have an icon on your device. So the crews can just click that. It'll bring them right to the login page for them to log in. And so what we're going to see here is the same view I just showed you, but because we're on a device now, we're going to have different sections. So I can actually use my finger and just swipe over, to the other sections if I want to see those. But typically what the crews will do, if they have a bunch of, vehicle checks to be completed, they can scroll down. On engine 1, I can see that I have 73 vehicle checks that are due right now. So I can click into that. And it'll bring me right to my checklist here of the different checks that need to be completed. So I can go through, You can make these required. Each check can be required if you'd like it to be. So that means I have to go through and select an option for it. And one of the new enhancements we made was the ability to kind of have different field types for your check. So you can see here, this is a drop-down field where I have my different values, and I can select those values based on what I need to input. But the nice thing about that is it keeps the data really high quality and consistent. So instead of someone just typing in full or 3/4, because you might get a little bit of variation, right, amongst crew members when they type things in manually. This will keep the data really consistent for you. But we can go through, we'll do some other checks here. If the crews get to a check and they have an issue, they can set one of those alerts by clicking this little red yield sign here. So let's just say we got a dent in the bumper. There we go. So we can mark that alert, and we don't have to do all of our checks at once. So if we just want to mark off what we've done so far, we can go ahead and log these. This is our review page, so it'll just show us what we've completed. And once I log these tasks, because I have that alert that I set, it'll bring me to an alert details page. And this is where I can enter more information about that dent and the bumper. So if I want to add additional comments, I can do that. If I want to mark it as urgent or routine, I can actually take a picture as well. We'll see if I can get Robbie. Where's Robbie? There he is. So there's our picture of Robbie. So we'll attach that. So you can attach multiple pictures if you need to. And then down here below, these are the different recipients that we've determined need to receive this type of alert. So as soon as I hit set alert, it'll be emailed and texted off to these different folks here. And if you ever need to copy someone, just like on an email, if you need to add someone else like Captain Smith, I can just add him right there to the alert. So we'll go ahead and set it. And once we've done that, like I mentioned, oops, I didn't hit it. There we go. Once we've set it, it'll again be emailed and texted off to those people. And then it'll bring us right back to our checklist if we want to keep going through and completing more checks. But you'll see all the checks that we just did have now disappeared off our schedule because they've been completed. And if I go back to my home page, you'll notice that our checks, I think we were at 73 before, and now we're down to 66 because we've completed some of those. So that's kind of how it works on a phone. And just wanted to show you that, again, how it kind of scales to different devices. I'm going to go ahead and just hop back to my computer screen just to make the view a little bit bigger. But any questions, Robbie, on that? I'll just pause for a second, see if there's anything that came in.
Sure, we'll pause for a moment if there's any questions on the crew standpoint and that mobile view. Thanks for doing that, Ryan. I think that's really slick and fun for everyone to see.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great. Well, if there aren't any questions, I'll go ahead and keep on running through it here. So what's nice is, and if I refresh my screen, so again, we just set that alert from my phone as a crew member. Back here at station 1, now we'll be able to see that alert right here in the middle as well. So again, any shifts at station 1, maybe we're A shift today, but B shift comes on tomorrow. When B shift does come on and they log in, they're going to see that alert that we've set right there. And typically what will happen is then maybe your mechanic or the fleet shop will come in and add a comment in this case. So we'll just say, alert received. We'll just say be out this afternoon, check on it. So whatever updates or communication you want to send back, but as soon as they've done that, it'll be added right to the alert. So all the crew members know what's going on. And eventually, once we fix that issue and it gets resolved, we can close it out as well. So we'll just say fix bumper. If there's receipts or other attachments you want to add to that alert for reference later on, you can do that. We can add a cost to it, and then we can close it right here. And once we've closed it, what's pretty cool is it'll disappear off of our open alerts because it's now been closed and the crews don't need to see it anymore. We don't want to clutter up their homepage. So it'll disappear off of there, but all of those alerts will always get archived. So if you ever want to go back and pull up a history of the alerts, you can filter it by station. We can choose a particular unit. So if I just want to look at engine 1, we can select a type or a category of alerts. So maybe I just want to see vehicle maintenance alerts over whatever date range. So if I want to go back a month or so, I can do that. And then once we search for that, it'll just list out those alerts one by one, and you can see all the details for each one. So when it was opened, what crew member opened it, who closed it and when, the category, the vehicle. Here's the actual alert details and the different comments that were added along the way, the cost, and then the pictures will stay with it as well. So if I pull this up, there's our picture of Robbie that we attached there. And so not only is that information available, but you can filter through it. So if we just want to look at, bumper issues, I can quickly filter for bumper and it'll just filter those out. And you can also export all this information or print it. So if you want to drop this into an Excel file or a PDF file to share with your team, you can do that at any point. Okay, so I'm just going to hop back to the home page. I also wanted to show you the alerts that I just talked about. That's obviously when something breaks or something goes wrong, but all the little green check boxes that I was marking, those are all being documented and stored as well. So we call them the logs. And if I go into my logs report, I can drill down again to whatever vehicle. So I'm just going to do engine 1. I can choose a particular checklist as well. So we had a question earlier about, can we split up DOT checks versus non-DOT checks? And you would actually be able to, you could filter that here too in the reporting side if you wanted to. But I'm just going to look at all of our checks for now, and we'll just do this date range. But basically, it'll just pull up every single check that was marked off, and you can see when it was completed, when it was scheduled. I can see the specific task and what crew member completed it. So every one of those little green check boxes is being stored and documented, and then you can export all this information if you want to. And you can drill down. So like on our weekly checks, just to show you, we have a miles and hours group, and one of the tasks is an odometer reading. So maybe I just want to see odometer readings, for engine 1 over the last couple months. I can just pull that up if I want, and it'll just filter out and just show me the odometer readings, and I can see exactly what the mileage was as we went along. And just like the alerts, you can export or print all this information right here. Okay, couple other things I wanted to show. What I just demonstrated there was the scheduled checks. And I'm going to kind of hop into the administrative page here. But what we do when we gather your information from you is we build out all the different checklists that you'd like to have stored and completed. And this is just an administrator page, so a normal crew member won't ever be on here, but essentially this is what we build for you when you send us that information. And so whatever checklist you want to have, this one's just called daily checks, and then we have our different task groups and then the different individual tasks inside. We have a weekly check one, a weekly checklist that's a little more detailed. I'll just kind of give some examples. This is a monthly inventory, and we break out all the compartments and then list out the different items inside and how many of each item there are. So we can get really granular and really detailed. And just keep in mind, if you aren't going to this level of detail right now, don't feel like you have to. We always recommend start with where you are right now. We can build it exactly how you're doing things currently, and then over time, if you want to keep evolving and keep adding to it, that's where our team will help out with that. We can make those changes for you and help you keep growing into the system as you want to use it more. So all these checklists, we have an SCBA check that's tied more to our SCBA module. But all these checklists are customizable. We can call them whatever we want, and we can schedule them however frequently we like. So for example, if I click into this one on fluid checks, maybe we want to add a new task. It's really easy to come in here, just add that new item. We can schedule it. So this is a daily one that's going to happen every day. And once I save it, it's just going to add it right there for us and be scheduled. So I'm just going to delete that so I don't forget. But that's kind of how we manage the checklist. Again, we build all that for you initially, but ongoing, if you want to come in and make a quick change, it's very simple to do that. But the reason I wanted to share that is all the numbers back here on the home page are being populated by that master schedule that we kind of build in the background. So just wanted to share that. We also have as needed checks. So obviously the scheduled checks, those need to happen on a specific frequency, but there's also situations where you might want to have the crews do something like after a call, maybe a post-call vehicle check or a fuel log or something like that. And that's not going to be a scheduled event, right? So when those events occur, they can click as needed, and then they can just choose what type of checklist they want to complete. So, they can click into the daily check. Maybe they get back from a call and they have a new dent in the bumper. They can set another alert by going into those checklists. Or if we want to log a fuel fill up, we can do that. Some departments will have their crews do a post-call inventory check. So, after the fire, we get back and we go through and we just log that we have everything, just to make sure it's all still present. So whatever checklist you'd like to have, we can build those, and then the crews can just reference those and complete them when they need to. Another big component to the vehicle module, and this was one of the pain points I think a lot of folks mentioned they had, was for equipment transfers. So when one vehicle goes out of service and we actually physically move equipment from one vehicle to the reserve vehicle, how do you keep track of that? And a lot of departments will just write it on the whiteboard, or maybe you have a sticky note, you put up on the computer with those items. We actually have a way to electronically capture that. And so what you can do is click this actions button here and click transfer items. And we can choose what type of changeover or transfer we want to do. So I'm just going to do an engine changeover. We can select our source. So let's say we're moving from engine 1 to engine 2. That'll be our destination. And then down here below, you can just select all the items that you want to transfer over. And if you have a standard list of items, then obviously the crews would just be selecting everything at once. Or if you don't have a standard list, they can just go through and select what items they need to transfer. And then once I log that, that transfer is going to be captured and documented. Where's right here. So I can see I have an open transfer. If I want to view it as a PDF, I can actually see here are the items that were transferred. I can see what crew member moved them over originally and when that happened. Also, if I go back to my home page, anytime there's an open transfer, we actually will label that on the vehicle here. for both the source vehicle and the destination vehicle. And if I click into that, it'll bring me back here so I can see those open transfers. I actually had another one on engine one from a couple months ago. So we have two, but that's how you can see those. And then eventually when you move those items back, we can return the transferred items. So you can document that, yes, all these items were returned. I can log that off. And then once that transfer is completed, it'll ask us, do we want to close it? So we can say yes. And you can see that transfer is now completed. All the items have been moved back. And if I click into completed transfers, we'll actually see here's that, the one I just completed. And so you can see exactly when it was moved and then when it was moved back and what crew members did that. So those are the transfer checklists. Those are pretty handy too, if you are moving items from one vehicle to another. A couple other common scenarios is if you have a vehicle that does go out of service, you may want to move it or mark it as out of service. So in this little actions button under manage vehicle, we have some of the common scenarios that will happen. So if I want to remove it from service, I can do that. So we'll just say in shop for repair. You can activate or deactivate all the checklists. Sometimes when it's in the shop getting worked on, you aren't doing the scheduled checks, so we could deactivate those in that situation. We can mark something as reserve status if it's a reserve unit. We can move it. So if this vehicle is being worked on, we could actually move it to the maintenance shop. And actually, I'm not going to do that because I know one of our other team members is in another demo right now. So I don't want to move this vehicle and then have him not be able to find it. But you can move things to other locations just based on where they are, so you can get a snapshot of where the vehicle currently is. I'm just going to keep it at station 1 for now, though. But yeah, when we make these changes and save them, all that will be updated here for us. So you can see our engine 1 just changed to out of service since I updated that. I'll show you on this brush truck. I'll move this one because I know this vehicle doesn't get used as much in our demo site. So if we want to move our brush truck to the maintenance shop, we can do that. And then what'll happen is it'll disappear here. So you can see it just disappeared out of station 1 since it's no longer here. But if I change my view and I go over to my maintenance shop, now we'll see our brush truck back over here in the maintenance shop, right there. So what's nice about that, the moving of the vehicles is if you ever want to see a status report of all your vehicles and where they are, you can click into this fleet status and it'll show you exactly, every one of your vehicles, the location where it's currently located. We can see if it's in or out of service, where our reserve units currently are, and also if there's any checks due or any open alerts. That's a new feature we just added. So if you're just curious, did the crews get all their checks done? You can pop in here really quick. We also send a daily email though. So if you're a captain or the fleet manager and you're curious, what was done today, we actually send out a daily status report email that'll show you what was completed and what wasn't completed. So in addition to this page, you can receive that email if you want to. But you can filter this report again, just based on what you want to look at, and then export that information as well. I know we just got about 10 more minutes. Just a couple other things I wanted to touch on here.
And I was secretly hoping you were going to move engine 1 in the maintenance shop. That's always fun for the rest of our team to go find it.
Yeah, I always get chewed out for that one. So hopefully I remember it today. And actually, while I'm thinking of that, well, you reminded me, Robbie, I'm going to move back brush 1 just so it's back at station 1.
Good idea.
So we'll put that back. There we go. Great. So just a couple other things I wanted to show. We also have an out of service report. So if you ever need to justify replacing a vehicle that maybe is towards the end of life, you can come in here and pull up that vehicle and select your date range. And then what this report will do is automatically calculate based on when you mark it as out of service and then back into service, it'll automatically calculate the duration that it was out of service. And then down here below, it'll sum that up. So, if we have a vehicle that's been out of service 6 months out of the year, we can actually see that and then take this report to our board or to the commissioner to help justify maybe getting a new rig to replace it. So that's another really handy report on the vehicle side. Let me see if there's anything else here real quick. I think that's probably pretty good from a high level. I know I covered a lot. So if you have any questions or if your team would like a deeper dive demo on the vehicle module, we always say that we're happy to do a follow-up demo for you. The last thing I'll share here, this is called our screencast home. And if you have any TVs like in your bay or in the station where you want to display PSTrax, the screencast page is built for that. So basically it'll just show you, I'm looking at the maintenance shop right now, but it'll just show you all the checks that are due currently for that station, any open alerts and any of the journal items. So if you want to display that up on your TV or on a dashboard, you can certainly do that. So Robbie, with that, I know we're coming up on the top of the hour, so I'll kind of pause there on the demo and turn it back over to you. If there's any questions or if you'd like to run through
Sure.
the upcoming events.
Yeah, Ryan, one more thing I was going to touch on, just we do have a good amount of PSTrax clients who are with us today. Hey, and thanks for being with us. Is there any way we can look at some of those system enhancements that we rolled out last month for the what's the word I'm looking for, the consistency in the reports?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me hop back into station 1 here. Yeah, I apologize. I kind of showed some of those drop downs when I was doing the crew checks, but I didn't share how we actually build those. So if I go back into my edit checklist page, and again, this is the administrator page where we kind of set up the checklist. For each check, previously how it worked was every check was basically a text field, but now we have different field types. So for example, on this fluid level, and tongue-tied on that one, the fluid level check, there we go. You can see here, these are the different types of values that you can capture. So if you want it to be just a text field, it can be that. It can be a numeric field, a date field. In this case, we have a drop-down field. And then if it's a mileage or an hours task, we can capture that too. And that will actually go into a special separate report, which is why we flag that. But for a drop-down like this, you can just input the different values that you want to be made available for that drop-down. And what'll happen, actually, I'll quickly just reschedule these. So what I'm doing here is I am just rescheduling them to be due again today. So that way, when I go back to my homepage here, they're going to be due again for us. But once you select that field type for each task, this is kind of what that'll look like. So on those fluid checks, we can see here, here's the drop down and here's those values that we had as options. And so again, what's nice about this is instead of having the crews type, 3/4 or 1/2, because you might get some people that write it as a fraction, some people might write it as, they just type out 1/2 or half full. So by doing this, you get more consistent reporting. So when you are pulling a report and trying to analyze that, all the data is consistent for you there. So those are some examples of drop downs. I think we have, as part of our weekly checks, this is an odometer reading, and so it'll require that it be a number that's inputted. So I can't type any letters; it has to be, a number that's put into that field. So that was one of the big enhancements we made in our last release about a week or so ago. So yeah, thanks, Robbie, for reminding me of that. Just wanted to share that real quick.
Yeah, excuse me. Thanks, Ryan. And I just wanted to point out too that the ongoing development really comes from our client base, and I think what's so unique to us is we have this build team who really listens, and because we've grown and developed this platform from all of you and your feedback, and I know that was something that was highly requested, and we're pretty excited to roll out, and just because it was direct feedback to make those consistency in the reports. As Ryan was saying, not just writing out half full, but actually having the fraction there and making sure it's consistent for every crew member is checking that off. So again, thank you so much. I know we're up against the end of the hour, and really appreciate everyone. I know your time is so valuable, and we appreciate you spending it with us. Just a couple quick webinars here. We mentioned this earlier. You can find them at PSTrax.com. Join us here in about a month if you'd like to dive into our PPE module too for NFPA 1851 inspections and cleanings and exposures. I'm going to run a poll here as we finish up. And if you are new to PSTrax and you liked what you saw today, want to either get this in front of more people in your team, bring some others in to take a look at what you just saw today, or if you'd like to get pricing, as Ryan mentioned, we do separate the pricing between heavy apparatus and support vehicles, and we can get you a more thorough look at that. Or if you'd like to look at both, just please fill out this questionnaire that's running right now. And yeah, Ryan, anything else you want to touch on as far as pricing or things of that as we wrap up?
Yeah, sure. I'll just go through that real quick, Robbie. Yeah, so on the pricing side, as I mentioned in the slides, we break it into your heavy vehicles and then your support vehicles. And so the heavy vehicles, like the engines, aerials, ambulances, hazmat, the heavy vehicles like those are $200 per year per vehicle, is the annual license fee. And then there's a one-time setup fee or implementation fee for us to build it and do all the training, which is the same amount. So basically in year one, it comes out to $400 per heavy vehicle. And then every year after that, it's $200. And the support vehicles, which are the lighter ones, those are $75 per vehicle. So things like tanker, tenders, anything like that that you'd like to track, it's a $75 annual license and then a $75 one-time setup fee for those. And as Robbie mentioned, if you would like pricing for your department, feel free to just mention that here in the poll. Or we do a lot of team demos as well. So if you'd like a follow-up one-on-one demo for your team, just let us know and we can do that for you.
Great. Well, thank you again so much, everyone, for spending a little bit of time with us. And yeah, again, we really appreciate you. Please stay safe out there. And thanks for serving your communities.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Thanks, Robbie.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.